especially excited about those who are tuning in from our satellite cities of Detroit, New York, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, and Silicon Valley. We have a wonderful program in store for you today. We have all the candidates running for Attorney General in this place. At this hour, you'll get to hear from them, you'll learn more about them, and then you will make your decision on who you will cast your vote for during the primary and general elections. So thank you for tuning in. We are so excited about what we'll be sharing with you today. The push is on. The push is on. The push is on.
We shall overcome. Somebody sing, we shall overcome. Let it ring out that we shall overcome. Someday, well deep in my heart, oh, I still believe it. We shall overcome someday. Yeah.
We'd like to give a very happy belated birthday to one of our very own. Happy belated birthday to Sinclair Booker. Let's give it up for Saint. We appreciate him. He's been with us from the beginning of time. He is our father, he is our friend, and he has been the wind beneath the wings of our CEO and founder, so we appreciate him for that. We also want to congratulate our very own. Let's give it up for Maurice Mahon, who was nominated as the best male vocalist for the Chicago Music Awards. Let's give it up. You get some of the best talent when you come here on Saturdays. We are so proud of you, Mahon. Thank you for what you do. Continue to do it. We also want to congratulate another one of our very own, Mother Helen Sinclair. Mother Helen Sinclair, as well as our good friend Spencer Leak, are two of many honorees being honored by Governor Rauner this month for Black History Month. Let's give it up for Mother Sinclair. You know, she's been on the battlefield working with our incarcerated population. She shows love, she shows hope, and she continues to work with our prisoners. So we thank Mother Sinclair for what she has done. We also want to keep in our prayers, certainly our very own right here in Chicago, the family of Commander Paul Bauer, as well as the entire Chicago Police Department, as well as the entire Chicagoland area. We've got to continue to keep a spotlight on what's happening in our community with crime and with gun trafficking and guns in our streets. But on this day, we are definitely sending up condolences for the family of Commander Paul Bauer. We also want to keep in our prayers those that are in Parkland. We saw another mass shooting affect our country this week. So we want to keep that region of our country lifted in prayer as well. And last but not least, I want to tell y'all, y'all missed the Wall Street Project Conference. I'm so sorry you weren't there. We had such a wonderful time in New York as we convened our financial family. And some of you all may be asking, well, why do you all continue to fight for economic parity? I don't know why you would ask that question, because you know our profile, while it's changed, it hasn't changed much. Overall, we still work harder and make less. Overall, we still live under more stress and we don't live as long. So that's why we continue to fight. When we look at low wages compounded with eliminating global health care, increasing tuition costs, and removing upward bound, that puts more people into poverty today than ever before. So let me tell you a little bit about African American employment. 54% of us, y'all, 54% of African Americans make less than $15 per hour. That's over half of our population that's earning less than $15 per hour. African American unemployment rate is really up by 1%, while we know others have boasted of it being down. According to the January reports released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, In January, we saw that African American unemployment had gone up 1%. We also know that we still have work to do with African American owned businesses. African Americans have lower rates of business ownerships and franchises. We're still fighting for equity with our dealerships, on boards and C-suites, etc. And firms owned by minorities and women represent 9% of mutual funds, 8.8% of hedge funds, 5.9% of private equity firms, and less than 3% of real estate funds. This is why we continue to fight. Wall Street is our street. You all do know that we built Wall Street, right? You do know that it was our great-great-great-grandparents whose sweat equity for free helped to build that street. So we are going back to claim what we know we're entitled to. Overall, we know we have more work to do in the financial services industry. Our wealth continues to lag behind. There are 1.2 million households in the top 1% of net worth, and over 96% of them, or 1.1 and a half million, are people that don't look like us. Only 1.4% are black. So we have a lot of work to do. This is why we continue to go to Wall Street every year. But that's not all that we do. Throughout the course of the year, you all, our satellite offices continue to research major companies and see where there are holes or disparate numbers of us either on the board, participating in the procurement process, and or in vertical as well as horizontal levels of employment. So they continue to do that research. We continue to go to board meetings. Reverend continues to hold corporate CEOs accountable for not only seeing us as consumers, but for seeing us as partners. But that's not all we do. We also have classes here, and if you don't know about them, you need to call us right now at 773-256-2775. But we host classes every Thursday to teach people how to be flaggers. We host classes in hospitality. We host classes to help people with pre-construction skills. And we're recently, as recent as March, we will be adding a class for small business incubation. So if you have an idea that you want to see converted into a business plan, or if you have a business and you want to see that thing expand, you need to join us starting March 24th for our breakfast, our business breakfast meetings. We will begin to work to grow more businesses. We need to take 79th Street back. We need to take 75th Street back. We need to take 71st Street back. Martin Luther King Boulevard is our boulevard. Cottage Grove is our street. We need businesses in the areas where we live, where we consume, and where we spend our dollars. So please, if you have questions, go to our website, rainbowpush.org, or call us at 773-256-2775. Now I'd like to bring up my sister Beloved, who does so much work with us in so many areas. You hear her all the time fighting and campaigning on behalf of our educational system. Won't you join me in giving a warm welcome to our sister, Reverend Jeanette Wilson. Give it up.
I have a lot to say, but before I say anything, I want you to hear from a young man who represents the A in STEAM, science, technology, engineering, and arts, and math. The arts portion is our performing arts as well as our oratorical competition. This young man almost was born in the building. His father, grandfather have all grown up in here. His father, as a matter of fact, led the Push Youth Division for a moment. He and my daughter worked together. I am so excited about this young vocalist. We always hear from his grandfather, Eric Thomas, and Raman Thomas is going to sing a song that's familiar to some of us, but it just shows the breadth of ability and talent that our young people have. Go ahead, Raman, make them hear you.
And tell our story, let it echo far and wide, make them hear you, make them hear you. justice was our battle and how justice was denied. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. And say to those who blame us for the way we choose to fight, that sometimes there are battles that are more than black or white. And I would not put down my sword when justice was my right. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. Go out and tell our story to your daughters and your sons. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. And tell them in our struggle we were not the only ones. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. Your sword can be a sermon or the power of the pen. Teach every child to raise his voice, and then, my brothers, then will justice be demanded by 10 million righteous men. Make them hear you. When they hear you, I'll be near you again.
I think they heard you. I know that many of us have heard his grandfather, Eric Thomas, sing in Italian and English, but Eric, I just want you to know, he's outdone you. We've heard him. This is what happens when our young people have an opportunity and they have a platform that presents them. And that is why we want parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles to really connect your young people to the Push for Excellence program. What we have in Chicago is a model for churches and congregations around, community organizations around the nation. We have to be the place where our young people are heard, where they are presented in oratory. And you're going to hear one of our oratorical students in just a few moments. We have a college-bound program that prepares our young people for college. Many of our young people today, they're first-generation college students. They need someone to help them with the financial aid and help them fill out applications, teach them how to write for college. And so Push Excel has a college-bound program every Saturday from 12 o'clock to 1:30. We have workshops, and we live stream the workshops for those of you who are watching us around the nation and even around the world. So your students, your children, just tell them to turn on Rainbow Push. Go to rainbowpush.org and watch live stream as we teach young people how to write effective essays as if they had a real paid mentor helping them to get into college and helping them to stay in. We have an HBCU, Historic Black College Tour. Every year we take 80 students around the nation to colleges. This year we're going to be in Alabama. We're going to Tuskegee. We're going to Alabama State. We're also going to visit the Equal Justice Institute. The young man, attorney Brian Stevenson, you saw him on our broadcast last week. Well, we're going to his institute where he has collected dirt from every site where an African-American was lynched, and there's some history about that. Many of you have the calendar which showcases the history of struggle of African-Americans. So we're going to go there. We're going to visit Stillman College. We're going to visit the National Voting Rights Museum at the foot of the Selma Bridge that we marched across on our way from Selma to Montgomery. We're going to visit Talladega College. We're going to visit Miles College. We're going to visit the Birmingham Civil Rights Museum. We're going to go to Toyota Motors so that young people can see the end of the road in terms of a career after college. we're going to visit the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis because this is the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. If you want your child to go, and you can get them to Chicago March 24th through the 31st, they can join us not just for a college tour, but it's 8 days of education. It's 8 days of history. It's 8 days of mentoring and engagement and empowerment and support. And then we have our oratorical program. It's designed to help our young people learn their history, recite historic speeches by African Americans, help them to learn how to present themselves in the public. And we want you to hear one of our young people in just a moment. Reverend Jackson's going to talk about some of the issues in education and some of the challenges we face. Next week, I'm going to talk about the 10 most segregated school districts in this country, starting with Michigan, starting with Alabama, starting with some states like Arkansas, like Pennsylvania, and you wonder why our children are not getting the access and the opportunities. It's because they grow up and they are forced to go to schools that are under-resourced, under-financed, and underfunded. And Reverend Jackson's going to tell you about a program that we are launching, a movement to change these conditions. But I don't have any more time. I want you to hear from one of our oratorical students, who is James Hall. He's in the 4th grade. Another powerhouse from Children of Peace School. Won't you welcome and greet warmly Mr. James Hall.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. One day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory. Hands to the heavens, no man, no weapon formed against. Yes, glory is destined. Every day, women and men become legends. Sins that go against our skin, they become blessings. The movement is like a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is just the positioning us. Justice for all just ain't specific enough. One son died, his spirit is reflected in us. True and living in us, resistance is us. Now that's why Rosa, she sat on the bus. That's why we walked through Ferguson with our hands up. When it go down, we said woman to man up. Shots, we on the ground. The camera panned up. King pointed to the mountaintop and we ran up. Now the war is not over. Victory isn't won. And we'll fight on to the finish. And once it's all done, we'll cry, glory, oh glory. It is my honor to introduce someone who has led us, inspired us, and showed us how to honor God by respecting all his people. A fearless advocate for nonviolence who stood with the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Bill Clinton. He continues to work tirelessly for peace and equality. Ladies and gentlemen, the president and founder of the Rainbow Push Coalition, Reverend Jesse L. Jackson, Sr.
somebody. I am somebody. I am somebody. Red and yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody is somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop the violence. Save the children. If my mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it, I know I can achieve it. Stop the violence. Save the children. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Mayhem. Introduction, young brother James Hall. Give James a big hand. Children of Peace School, give it. Stand up again, James. And for Make Them Hear You, brother Rockmon Thomas. Stand up, Rockmon. Let's see it for Rockmon. Been a week of profound challenges for our family. Brother Don Jackson, founder of Stellar Awards and member of our family, lost his wife, Rosemary Jackson. We pray for Don in a special way today. We thank God for all that Rosemary meant to us, a stellar wife and producer and writer and community activist. We thank God. Give a big hand to Rosemary Jackson, please. Yesterday, at the very same time, the brother Fred Hampton, Bill Hampton, made his transition. Let's hear for Bill Hampton. Remember one of our founding members who got the contract for this building, Sister Lucille Conway Lohman. It's her anniversary. Give her a big hand, Lucille Lohman. And the pen that mattered. During the height of our civil rights intense struggle, there was one writer, Lerone Bennett, who on the one hand was making history and on the other hand writing it. A big hand on your feet for Lerone Bennett. Lerone Bennett. Lerone Bennett. Before the Mayflower, Lerone Bennett did the first biography of Dr. King. He was Dr. King's classmate at Morehouse College, Birmingham, Alabama. Brother Lerone Bennett, we thank and praise God for his many, many years of service. Before we get to our distinguished panel today, we were in Memphis, Tennessee this week at the Proctor Conference. It's maybe the most dynamic ministerial conference in America today. And one thing we did was, while there, we went to Lane College at Jackson, Tennessee, registered 1,000 students. 1,200 at that school. We registered 1,000 in one day at Lane College. If that means voters vote in one spot, they can make an impact upon that city. We then went to Holly Springs, Mississippi for another college, Rush College in Holly Springs, Mississippi. We also went to Nashville at Tennessee State University to do voter registration. American Bible College. Say voter registration matters. Across the South, there are 4 million unregistered African Americans, 4 million. 2.2 million who were registered who didn't vote the last time. So those who did not vote and could have voted, Trump is your special gift. Yes, we went to Cura High School, Ruiz, yesterday. We went to Cura High School, 700 high school seniors at that school. We then went to Gwendolyn Brooks School yesterday at 11 o'clock to register even more seniors. So there are 10,000 high school seniors in Chicago, Cluster County, plus the state, plus every state. Every high school senior in America who's 17 now, who will be 18, has the right to register this year, be a part of your primaries. They should vote for their right to be a juror, vote for their right to elect judges, their right to elect attorney generals, their right to elect judges. Young America can be brought alive by parents and teachers who care. If you are a principal, if you have not organized your senior class to register to vote, it is your fault. Don't say that apathy. Say, if I have 300 high school seniors, I have not convened them to register and vote, it's my fault. They will do what I teach them. They will embrace my values. Give them another hand. Would you? We are consistent with our own philosophy. This year we are having this, today, the Attorney General's Candidates Forum. Many of them are not on television. They don't have the money. They have records of service. They have commitments, and they have passion. I want to call them, I want them to stand. I want you to see them. We're on live on radio. We're on radio, VON. We're on iHeart. We're on Impact Television around the nation, around the world. So I call them, please stand. Kwame Raoul. Stand, Kwame. Keep standing. Jesse Ruiz. Renato Marietta. Scott Drury. Nancy Rotary. Aaron Goldstein. Former Governor Pat Quinn. Sharon Fairley. Give all of them a big hand. I want to start, take your seats. I want to ask you a very basic question. You who are watching on TV or listening, please hear them and watch them now. Starting in the name, the list. Kwame, why do you want to be State's Attorney General?
Thank you, and good morning, Push. I'd like to say that I'm introducing myself to you, but you know me. You know me because I've worked on voting rights. I passed the Illinois Voting Rights Act. I put constitutional protection for voting rights in the Illinois Constitution. I passed a bill just a couple of weeks ago to make sure we don't participate in Donald Trump's cross-check. You know me because I've worked on criminal justice reform. I abolished the death penalty in the state of Illinois. I expanded sealing of criminal records. I made sure we removed barriers for ex-offenders to get licensure so they could work. You know me because I've worked on law enforcement reform. I passed a torture inquiry commission to make sure the acts of John Burge and all the officers that served beneath him do not continue. I passed a comprehensive law enforcement reform bill. Push, you know me because I stood right outside of this building with activists who did not want to see their high school closed down the street. So why do I want to be Attorney General? Because I want to continue the work that I've already been doing. I'm not introducing myself. You know me, and I'm just getting started.
Very well. Jesse Ruiz, why do you want to be Attorney General?
Well, I'm the son of Mexican immigrants. My dad came here as a migrant farm worker with only a third-grade education, settled in the Roseland neighborhood of Chicago where I grew up and my family still lives. And so I've been blessed that I've had the opportunity to pursue the American dream, to go to the University of Illinois, pay my way through college when it was still affordable and possible, go to the University of Chicago Law School and have the privilege of learning the law from Barack Obama, and then have a law career and engage in public service, primarily in public education, because that was my path to the American dream. And I want to keep working as your Attorney General to make sure we keep that path open. And it's under attack. It's under attack by our very own president and by our governor. And I want to make sure I work hard to make sure I honor my parents' sacrifices on my behalf, make sure I give every child in Roseland and across the state of Illinois the same opportunities I've had, to make sure we protect consumers. We bring criminal justice reform to Illinois. We protect access to affordable health care. We protect our environment and make sure we always have open, honest, and transparent government. So when I stepped in and led CPS because of a corruption scandal, I made sure we fix it. We need a robust CPS, and I'll continue to advocate, regardless that I'm not going to be involved in public education, I'm going to continue to advocate for equitable and fair education funding, as I've done for the past 20 years. Jesse Ruiz, I would love the honor and privilege of being your Attorney General, your champion, your advocate. Thank you.
Ronaldo Mariotto.
My name's Renato Mariotti. I'm a little different than some of the other candidates. I'm not an elected politician. I'm not somebody who's been appointed by Rahm. I'm somebody who came from really nowhere. I was born in Chicago to two parents who didn't go to college. My dad didn't even graduate from high school. Both my parents worked two jobs to put me through school. They were working class people, and frankly, it was the pride of their life that I was the first person in my family to go to college. I was able to go to the University of Chicago, went to Yale Law School, came back here and became a federal prosecutor. I worked for Pat Fitzgerald, spent almost a decade going after white-collar crime, the people who are manipulating the financial markets, people who are taking advantage of our seniors, people who are preying on our communities, people who are taken from the TIF program that's supposed to be going to the communities that need it the most. Those are the people that I went after for 10 years. Now, after I went through a lot of those trials and I fought cancer and beat that too, I left the U.S. Attorney's Office, and now I'm in private practice, and I'm doing everything I can to stand up against the Trump administration and to stand up against those rich and powerful people who are taking things away from the people who deserve them most, working people who are struggling to make ends meet. And that's why I want to be your Attorney General. I want to be your Attorney General so that people across this state and people in this city who aren't having investments in their communities, who are being preyed upon by lenders who are taking advantage of them, can have an Attorney General who will fight for them. That's why I want to be your Attorney General. My name's Renato Mariotti. I hope you consider voting for me. Thank you.
Give it up. Scott Drury. Scott Drury.
Thank you. Good morning, Push. My name is Scott Drury, and I'm running for Attorney General to clean up the state of Illinois. To clean up a state that no longer works for all of you, but only works for the politicians who are elected. We all know that that's not right. To clean up a criminal justice system that we know is not just. When I got elected to the General Assembly 5 years ago, the first thing that I did was take on criminal justice reform before it was popular to be talking about. I wanted to make sure that John Burge never happens again in the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago, and because of legislation that I passed, we now record more interrogations that the police are conducting to make sure that they're not doing anything wrong, and we passed first in the nation legislation to make sure that witness identification programs are done properly. I'm running for Attorney General to clean up the Democratic Party, because let's face it, how many people's lives are better off today than they were 10 years ago? I was listening towards the beginning that how many people aren't making $15 an hour? That is ridiculous. I supported the bill to raise the minimum wage to $15 per hour, but we weren't able to get that passed. We have to do better as a party. We have to take care of our own. Certainly we need to point the finger. We need to call out Trump for all the horrible things that he's doing. And we need to call out Bruce Rauner for all of the horrible things that he's doing. But we also have to be able to look within and look at our own party and say, why is Bruce Rauner in power? Is it because people were upset with Democrats and so they elected somebody? Is that why they elected Donald Trump? We need to do better. The best way for Democrats to succeed is for us to be the best party, for us to push the best values, for us to be the honest party, and for us to always do what's right by the people of the state of Illinois. My name is Scott Drury. I'm running for Attorney General, not just to earn your votes, but to earn your trust. Thank you.
Yeah. Nancy Rodering. Nancy Rodering. Nancy. Give Nancy a big hand. Give it up.
Good morning, Rainbow Push Coalition. Thank you so much, Reverend Jackson. I am so honored to be with you this morning and to have the chance to talk with you. I'm running because our city is in crisis. Our state is in crisis. Our nation is in crisis. And we need an advocate. We need someone who is independent, principled, has integrity, and has experience. I'm a mother of 4, and I'm a mayor, and I've been a mayor for 7 years. And as a mayor, I've stood up to the NRA. We banned assault weapons and large capacity magazines in our city, and we got sued by the NRA and taken to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we won. I've stood up to the utilities. I created a legal aid clinic because I knew that people in my community were hurting and they needed an advocate to stand up for them in the areas of housing and immigration and domestic violence. Because if you're going to lose your home, if you're going to lose your family, if you could lose your life, you need an advocate. You need someone who's got your back, who's going to fight all the way to take care of you. So we know right now our civil rights are under attack. Our human rights are under attack. The fundamental rights of our democracy are under attack. We are running in this election to stand up against someone in November who is funded by Bruce Rauner and who thinks Donald Trump is doing a good job. She cannot be our next Attorney General. I'm Nancy Rotering. I'm excited to be here with you today, and I can't wait to talk with you. Thank you.
Aaron Goldstein. Aaron Goldstein.
I do every single day, and that's standing up for all of us in an unjust criminal justice system. When I was in law school, I worked for the Legal Assistance Foundation and the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless, standing up for people who did not have a voice, standing up for people who were underrepresented. That's what I did when I was in law school. And when I graduated law school, I applied for one job, to be a Cook County public defender, because I knew some fundamental things. Number one, we all have human dignity. And number two, this criminal justice system is not just, it is racist. I've known that when I was in law school, I knew that before, and you all know that very well. So what do I want to do as Attorney General? Number one, stand up to the big powers. Who is that? The big banks, the big corporations, and that tyrant in the White House. We need to stand up to them every single day. Number two, we must have real criminal justice reform. What does that mean? End mass incarceration. End this racist drug war. Stop cash bail. I've been working on that every single day in Cook County, and we're actually moving towards getting rid of it in Cook County. It needs to be a statewide thing where there's no cash bail. No one should be sitting in jail because they can't post $100. That's unjust. And we need real police accountability. What does that mean? There must be a consent decree where the community has enforcement power. You need the voice. You must have the power. Not Rahm Emanuel, not even the Attorney General. The people must have that voice. And I will stand up to corruption. Why am I running for Attorney General? To be the greatest advocate for justice you have ever seen in this office. And that's what I'll do. Aaron Goldstein, thank you.
Sharon Farley. Sharon Farley. Good morning, Sharon.
My name is Sharon Fairley, and I'm actually trying to make history. I'm trying to become the first black female Attorney General for the state of Illinois. And I'll tell you, I entered this race because I believe that our state has some serious problems that our current political leadership has completely failed to address. We're talking about pension reform, inequities in education, a broken criminal justice system, police brutality. I could go on. And these issues have some serious legal challenges associated with them. And I believe that now more than ever, what our state needs is an Attorney General who has the experience and the independence to get things done. Everything in my personal and professional life has prepared me for this role. I have an undergraduate degree from Princeton University in mechanical and aerospace engineering, which shows that I do not shrink from tough problems. I have an MBA in business experience, and I was blessed to come to Chicago right here to get my law degree from the University of Chicago. And since then, I have served only the citizens of Illinois as an assistant attorney general, as a federal prosecutor, and a leader in police reform. Having served as a civilian Office of Police Accountability as its chief administrator, you can be confident that I know how to lead an agency responsible for legal matters, because I've already done it. I'm not here to advance my political career. I love being a lawyer, and I feel blessed that I found my calling. I want to be the next Attorney General who works for you. My name is Sharon Fairley. Thank you.
Pat Quinn, why?
Very glad to be back at PUSH. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I want to be Attorney General of Illinois, to be a lawyer for the people of our state. And the people of Illinois and the people of America need somebody to stand up to Trump in Washington. I signed the bill for the Affordable Care Act in Illinois. If Trump tries to take that away from people, in our state we've added over 1 million people to health care because of Barack Obama's law. And I believe in Obamacare. That means I do care. And that means the Attorney General's got to fight hard for people who need decent health care. We also need to fight hard for consumers to take on the big utilities, whether it's Commonwealth Edison or People's Gas or AT&T. I was with Reverend Jackson right in front of People's Gas 17 years ago. We sang, "We shall overcome," and we're not letting those big gas companies shut people down. You've got to have an Attorney General that stands up to People's Gas and all their big money. It's important, I think, also for the Attorney General to be someone who stands up against assault weapons and high-capacity ammunition magazines that was used to kill those boys and girls down in Florida. We're not going to let the NRA run Illinois or run America. We're going to stand up to them, and that's what the Attorney General has to do. And then finally, I do believe in criminal justice reform. I signed the bill to end the death penalty in Illinois. I did almost 5,000 clemencies. I freed Howard Morgan. I freed Tyrone Hood. They were unjustly convicted. And it's important to have someone who believes in justice as the Attorney General. 50 years ago, I was going to college. I was a freshman in college in Washington, D.C., and the Poor People's Campaign came to Washington, D.C. I was there. I believe in raising the minimum wage, and I believe everybody should be in and nobody left out. Thank you.
As I bring on Sister Benita Parker, as we mourn the death of 17 children in Florida. In Chicago, since 2011, 166 people under 17 have been killed in shootings. 1,605 have been shot. So since 2011, in Chicago, 166 under 17 have been killed, and 1,605 have been shot. It's time for a change everywhere. Sister Benita Parker. Benita.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you so very much. Thank you all for being here with us this morning. As a former banking executive and someone who's really concerned about consumer rights, could you all begin to share with us your thoughts on what we're going to do about the overproliferation of payday lending stores, currency exchanges, redlining? We know that banks sometimes don't do the right things based on zip codes. So if you could tell me a little bit about your platform and your plan for consumer protection, we would appreciate that. And let's go in reverse order this time. Let's start with Pat Quinn.
Consumer organization like CUB, Citizen Utility Board, which I helped start 35 years ago and had a lot of help from the people of Push in getting CUB going, that takes on the big utilities, and we've got to take them on every day. What was just mentioned about payday lenders and currency exchanges and banks with their unfair policies on student loans and mortgages, we've got to have the same kind of consumer organization, a financial consumer organization that works with the Attorney General to bring him to justice. It's not fair what they did to our economy. These big financial institutions with their mortgage abuses led to a lot of people losing their homes. And when I was governor, we had to work with the President of the United States, Barack Obama, to help people avoid foreclosure. So we need an ongoing consumer group that the Attorney General of Illinois uses with the Deceptive Trade Practices Act, that's already the law of Illinois, to bring these financial institutions to justice. Let justice prevail, though heavens may fall. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, Sharon Fairley, would you please tell us your plan?
Yes, absolutely. Protecting consumers is actually at the core, it's at the heart of the role of the Attorney General. And that's why it's so important that you have an Attorney General who has the experience investigating and doing the kinds of investigations that can result in the enforcement of the laws to control these things. As a prosecutor, I investigated a group of individuals who was preying on seniors and convincing them to give them money that they would reduce their loans, and they just took the money and ran and left these poor women holding the bag. But I have the investigative skills to actually hold them accountable and put them away and put them in jail. And I will use those skills to push back and protect citizens. This is an area that's really important. The Attorney General will use the whole power of the office to, and that's why having not only criminal experience, but also civil and administrative experience as a lawyer is important. And those are the kinds of skills that I will bring to bear as the main consumer protective. The other really important thing is to be sure you're looking for a candidate that hasn't taken money from some of these big corporations that are seeking to prey on our citizens. And I have not done that, although others in this race have. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Roddering.
So it's important to recognize what the role is of the Attorney General. And consumer protection is one of the top 5 priorities in that office. I bring a background in business. I have an MBA in finance, and I worked in finance for General Motors before I came here to the University of Chicago to get my law degree and practice law in Chicago. I understand where the soft spots are, where the opportunities are to take advantage of folks who may not understand what they're signing up for. It's vitally important to have an advocate who will say, you cannot do this to our people. You cannot do this to families who are trying to stay in their homes. You cannot do this to students who just want to go to school and can't walk out with unfair lending practices dragging behind them. When I came to law school, I took out loans at 18%. Nobody told me 18% was a ridiculous rate to borrow money at, but I wanted to go to school. I wanted to become a lawyer. I wanted to go to law school. We need to provide advice to students. We need to shut down these unfair lenders, and we need to stand up to what's going on at the federal level, where our president is doing everything in his power to tear down the protections that were built up during our President Obama.
Thank you. Kwame Raoul.
Why do you know that I will stand up to payday lenders and to the banks? Because I have already. I stood with Citizens Action in the legislature to pass reforms on payday lenders. I stood with Attorney General Lisa Madigan as I sponsored legislation. There are people who get paid with, temporary workers who get paid with debit cards. The problem is when they try to use them, the banks were charging excessive fees. I stood up to these banks already, and we passed legislation to make sure that these excessive fees weren't taking away the hard-earned wages that these people working hard had earned. So why do you know, as Attorney General, I will take on the banks and the payday lenders? Because I already have, and I'm just getting started.
Thank you. Jesse Ruiz.
As I mentioned, my dad, not a lot of formal education, but a strong back. So he worked hard over here at Ward Baking Company at 57th and LaSalle for 23 years. Never earned more than $19,000 a year. We lived paycheck to paycheck. I mean, sometimes between buying that last gallon of milk, my mind had $2 left to last from Friday to Friday. And so I know well what working families are going through. And a lot of my family in Roseland still is going through. And so protecting consumers not being taken advantage of, particularly our most vulnerable in society, our youngest and our oldest. Making sure that students can still have the path I have. I went down to Champaign-Urbana with $300 in my pocket, was able to work and borrow money and come out with only $10,000 of debt, and then go to work at Inland Steel and earn $21,000 a year, twice what I owed. That's getting more difficult today. And the rules that Arne Duncan put in place at the U.S. Department of Education, Betsy DeVos is rolling back. Mick Mulvaney, just this past Monday, said, very ironic for the Trump administration, that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is going to be more humble and modest in the approach to protecting consumers. What he's saying is they're going to abdicate their responsibility to protect consumers. So I will fight vigorously to make sure my family members, my neighbors in Roseland and everywhere else are protected and aren't taken advantage of, so they still have the path to the American dream, because it's getting out of whack. The playing field is out of whack. I understand it, and I will passionately protect it.
Thank you. Scott Drury.
In 2003, I left a career in private practice as an attorney, and I went to work at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago. During that time, I worked in the financial crime sector, and my job was to weed out and go after the corporations that were preying on people committing crimes, because we all know that the big banks are not working for you. They're working to make a profit, even if it means charging you rates of interest, making it so you can't go to college, making it so that if you get out of college, that you can't even work because they're taking all of your wages away. I worked to put an end to that. And then in 2011 and 2012, I decided, you know what, I want to change things from the inside, so I ran for state office. I had no experience doing that. I wasn't a politician. And I picked up where I left off at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I said, we're going to clean up the state of Illinois, and we're going to make it a state that works for us. What you see in Springfield is just disgusting. Every night you see bankers, the banks going out to dinner with the legislators, buying them gifts. I said put an end to that, and I sponsored legislation that said no more gifts between legislators and politicians. We have to end that corrupt deal. We need a government that works for you. We need a government that every single day is working for the people of the state of Illinois, not working to make politicians rich, not working to make lobbyists rich, not working to make banks even richer. And as your Attorney General, I have the experience to investigate those crimes. I have the experience to advocate for the legislation that we need to make sure they don't happen. And I will set the tone at the top that we are not going to tolerate the big corporations taking advantage of hardworking people on a daily basis. It's got to end, and it's going to end once I'm your Attorney General.
Thank you. Aaron Goldstein.
So first and foremost, you need an Attorney General who's independent, not someone who's taking cash from corporations. I'm not taking cash from corporations, so you know I'm going to be independent. Let me take you back to 2008, when the economy tanked, and all those bankers that took advantage of our economy, what did they say? Too big to fail. How many of those banksters went to prison? 0. Yet, I'm representing individuals, they got a dime bag in their pocket and they're going to prison. That is not just. So we need an independent Attorney General who will go after these people and these corporations, and that's the problem. So we need an advocate for you, and that's what the Attorney General is. First and foremost is to be an advocate for the people of the state of Illinois, and that's what I will do. Every consumer protection issue, I will stand up for you. Whether it's the payday loans that are taking advantage of us, the college tuition and the college loans that are taking advantage of us, every single day, the banking fees that are taking advantage of us, you need an Attorney General who will be independent and fight for all of us, and that's what I'll do.
Thank you. And Ronaldo Mariotto.
You know, when I spoke earlier, I talked about how we struggled when I was growing up and how my family both worked 2 jobs to put me through school. Well, I will tell you, I don't need to tell you, when you go around in communities with working people, you see currency exchanges, you see payday lending, and you know what? Those fees keep going up and up and up. We're reading about it, right? These currency exchanges are charging larger and larger fees. The payday lenders are taking advantage of people, and you know what ends up happening? People are paying $100 per paycheck just in fees. Just in fees. So, you know, we heard about all the politicians are saying, look, we've been doing all this stuff on currency exchanges and payday lending. It's not working. It's not working. And what we have to do is we have to take them to court. It's not going to be just citizen action. It's not just going to be us speaking out. We have to go against them. And I will tell you, I have gone against big banks, big financial institutions. When they were on the other side, we had Wall Street lawyers on the other side. It's not easy, but that's what we got to do. We've got to take them to court. We need an Attorney General who's going to go after the payday lenders, who's going to go after the currency exchanges that are overcharging working families and making it harder for them to make ends meet. That's what I'll do as your Attorney General.
Let me ask you, 7 of you are going to lose. 1 is going to win. Will you support the winner? Raise your hand. If you will support the winner, raise your hand. If you will support the winner, raise your hand. We'll give all of them a hand for having that done. I'll ask one last question. Is to say that in 1954, they passed a decision, some of you, Kwame, to make race separation in schools illegal. They shifted it to resource segregation. So you live in Inglewood, you get one education, live in Naperville, you get another. Would you be willing to file a lawsuit, each of you, a lawsuit to equalize funding for public education in the state?
Absolutely. Brown v. Board of Education was supposed to get rid of separate but equal. It was never equal. It was never equal. And although Brown was a good court decision, we've never seen the impact of Brown v. Board of Education, because in the Chicago public schools, we've continued to be separate and unequal. in the state of Illinois at large. We just passed legislation to start taking into account poverty in the way we fund education. So it's just the beginning of balancing things out. But that's by school district. So if we have a school district like the Chicago Public Schools that maintains this separate but unequal, closed down 50 schools in African American and Latino communities and seeks to build a Barack Obama school in a community that does not need it, yes, I would use my powers to really bring forth the spirit of Thurgood Marshall and Brown v. Board of Education to the city of Chicago.
Jesse Ruiz, blacks filed a lawsuit to end racial segregation by race. Latinos filed one to end it by resources. That one lost and the other one won. Would you be willing to file a lawsuit to end unequal funding in public education, say between Naperville and inner cities?
Anything and everything, as I've had for the past 20 years, trying to make sure my very first role in public service was on the Chicago Public Schools Desegregation Monitoring Commission in 1999 until it eventually was phased out. But this is what we were trying to do, to make sure that districts that don't have the means, who don't have the assessed property values, and frankly, rural districts in Illinois are funding their students at about less than $10,000 a year. And the high on the North Shore is about $25,000 a year. That is not equitable. I was proud that Arne Duncan appointed me to the U.S. Department of Education's Equity and Excellence Commission, where we advocated that we make sure we have equity and excellence all over the United States. That is not the case. Frankly, it's been a failure of our government. The General Assembly has failed us because they have not acted. Past governors have failed us because they have not acted. It is a legislative solution primarily, that they have to raise the resources. They have to stop spending over $40,000 a year to incarcerate somebody 15 to 20, but not willing to spend $15,000 a year to educate somebody P to 12. That's what we need to start doing, reallocate the resources, making sure we don't make the prison industry that's for-profit in this state profitable, make our children rich by investing in them, and that will solve all of our societal problems. That's what we need to do. Legislatively go after, attack it, make sure we don't give CPS any more pension holidays. They should pay their pension, and don't give them any passes that they should have done. Unfortunately, our elected officials have failed us. That's why you need new ones.
Jesse, don't give the name Jesse a bad name, okay? Sit down. Nancy?
This is a civil rights question. Of course I would sue. Every child deserves an excellent public education regardless of where they live. And how does that happen? You provide resources? Yes. You provide safe access to schools? Yes. You should be able to get to your school without putting your life at risk. You should be able to have teachers who have the resources that they need to do their job every single day and to not have to dig into their own pockets because your school doesn't have the right materials for your students to be good students. You need to put the resources behind the mental health issues that are going on in our society and deal with the violence in our neighborhoods that impact our students and make it hard for them to be learners. Because when they get to school, they're already dealing with trauma and fear and not able to focus on their studies. This is a bigger question than just resources for schools. This is recognizing the very clear obstacles that stand in the way of so many of our students. They are our future leaders. They deserve our investment. It has to be a priority for everybody up here to make sure that every child has access to an excellent education.
Ronaldo?
Well, one thing you may not know is the Illinois Constitution guarantees that students get a high-quality education. And look where we're at. Look where we're at. Obviously, we need to bring a lawsuit. Obviously, we need to get meaning to that clause in the Constitution. But I'll tell you one thing that we also need to do is we need to invest in our neighborhood schools instead of closing them down. I mean, I will tell you, that's what the CPS has been doing here, and I have a disagreement with that. I don't think that's right. I mean, when you got schools that are supposedly not performing, The answer is not to close the school down and have the kids go further away where they're walking through dangerous areas, getting further away. They're not going to perform better. We need to invest in communities and invest in neighborhood schools that aren't getting the investment they need. That's what we need to do, and that's what I'll advocate for as Attorney General.
Aaron?
The answer is yes. I absolutely would file a lawsuit and pursue that lawsuit. I'm a proud alum of Chicago Public Schools. My 2 daughters go to Chicago Public Schools. I know this very well. And there's a long history of unfairness, and that's a big problem. I think we can get a lot done with new leadership in this city in 2019, quite frankly. So keep voting. But I want to tell you a little history. Charles Hamilton Houston, back in the 20s and 30s, he was filing lawsuits to desegregate public arenas, schools. And there was a guy that he mentored. His name was Thurgood Marshall. So Charles Hamilton Houston to Thurgood Marshall to Brown v. Board of Education. No one thought that through the court system we can actually make change. But before there was any legislation, before there was any Civil Rights Act, there were people in the courts actually fighting for us to desegregate public accommodations. And we had a lot of victories. Now, there's a ton to be done, and I've done it. When I represented homeless school children who were being discriminated, they were being kicked out of their school because they were homeless. I represented them to stop that practice. I have that history to fix it, and I'll do it as Attorney General.
Let me ask you a question. We are desegregated by race, but not by resources. So you have Naperville and you have Inglewood. How would you equalize access?
We need to fix the broken property tax system, first of all, right? So I represent right now, I represent a community. It's an interesting one because some of the schools in the community I represent, the kids are getting $25,000 per year. I also represent schools where the children are getting $6,000 per year. And there is no way to equalize that if it's all based on property taxes. So the state of Illinois right now, we have a corrupt property tax system. We have a property tax system that is run by a Speaker of the House who also has a law firm that makes money off of property taxes by getting them down. We have to change that. We need to have a community, a system, again, that works for people. And yes, I'll file a lawsuit, but it's not enough just to file a lawsuit, right? We need to win the lawsuit. And so I have experience as a litigator. I've been a litigator for 20 years. I'm a member of the federal trial bar right here in Chicago. I teach trial advocacy at Northwestern's law school. And I have a record of doing civil rights litigation, both as a prosecutor. I brought a civil rights action against a police officer who beat up a helpless African-American man who was handcuffed in a wheelchair. And the state's attorney let him go. And we said, that's not right. You have to go after him. And we prosecuted him for civil rights violations, and he went where he belonged. And so we need an advocate who's not just going to bring the lawsuit, but who has a theory, who says, look, the reason that this needs to change is not just because it should be equalized. It is a civil rights issue, and it's not just a matter of equalizing education. It's a matter of safety. It's a matter of community. We talk about gun violence, and hopefully we'll talk about it a little more later. But look, gun violence, guns are one of the issues in gun violence, but it's also a socioeconomic issue. If we don't educate children, if we don't have vocational programs in our schools anymore and we got rid of them, if we don't have ways for people to re-enter communities once we put them in prison, what do we expect people to do? And so I've been on commissions in the state of Illinois to reduce the prison population, to make it easier to come back, to open up rehabilitation centers, and that's what I will continue doing as your Attorney General.
Sharon?
Raised by 2 dedicated public servants in education who spent their careers trying to ensure that all children had access to a quality education. My dad worked in the 60s as teams that would go into the South to desegregate schools. My mom was an elementary principal. My daughter's a teacher. Education is a core value. It is a civil right, but it's also an issue, it's an economic issue, and it's a public safety issue. If we don't prepare our children and give them economic opportunity by giving them the skills that they need to enter the workforce, these are problems that just are exacerbated. So yes, I will file a lawsuit, and I will use all the powers of the office to ensure equality in education, even if legally possible, to take over poorly performing school systems. What we need also is to hold the people in power accountable. And so that's why I would support an elected school board here in Chicago, so that they start to make the right decisions and we have some say over how they're delivering educational services to our children. The Attorney General must stand up to provide equal opportunity in education for all of our children, and that's what I'll do as Attorney General. Thanks.
Pat, would you file such a lawsuit?
The answer is yes. The Illinois Constitution, Reverend, requires that everyone have a fundamental right to education, and that means resources, not just being able to go to school. I live in the west side of Chicago. I was elected in my neighborhood to be on the local school council. Right now, I'm the lead plaintiff in Quinn versus Chicago Board of Education. As Sharon just said, we need an elected school board here in Chicago to make sure we do get fair resources. Why should we be the only school district in Illinois that doesn't elect the school board? It seems to me that that's a fundamental right of every parent, of every student, of every taxpayer. We're paying property taxes that are unfair. We've got to change that system. We've got to do that with the Attorney General filing a lawsuit against unfair assessments that raise the taxes of everyday people in minority neighborhoods, black and Hispanic, and give the skyscrapers a tax break. That's not right. That's not just. The Attorney General has to be a lawyer for the people. Got to stand up to make sure that people get a fair shake. When I was governor, I had to run 2 campaigns to get revenue for education. That wasn't easy going against that $70 million of Rauner, but I'd rather tell the truth about what we need to do than give in to the plutocrats. So that's what the Attorney General's got to do, fight for children and parents and a decent education for everybody.
Now, before we go, do any of you want to ask another one of you a question, or you identify a contradiction that you want to address? Since all y'all support the winner, either of you want to ask the other one a question. Go for it.
One thing that hasn't come up today that I think is a real unjust thing in our state, and especially here in Chicago, are red light camera operators. They're charging $100 for people who can't take off of work. We need an Attorney General to take on these operators. It's not fair what's going on in Chicago and other cities where these red light camera operators are giving people tickets costing $100, and it isn't really based on facts. Some of these yellow lights are half as long as they should be, and I want to make sure as Attorney General I fight for you when it comes to taking on these red light camera operators.
All right. I see. Now, who wants to ask another question? You agree or disagree with someone has said? You disagree with what someone has said? Or you have another point of view? Do you disagree with what someone else has said? Do you disagree with what someone else has said? Is there anybody on the stage you want to challenge? Is there anyone up here that you want to challenge? Is there anyone here you want to challenge? Is there anyone here you want to challenge?
Oh, absolutely. You know what? This week, I'll tell you, Reverend, I'm really mad about gun violence. And what I want to ask is, Senator Raul, why is it that we have a law that prohibits our communities from making their own laws about gun control? In 2013, when we put in place the new law to deal with the concealed carry issue, the NRA also pushed through state preemption, which says that our municipalities can't make their own laws about possessing firearms or possessing assault weapons. I want to know why that is.
And then Nancy?
So I participated in the negotiation of a concealed carry bill, and I made sure that we strengthened our background checks because prior to that, on prior transfers of guns, somebody could have a FOID card that should have been taken away from them because they have a mental disability or they had been convicted. But because I participated, I was willing to participate when everybody else was silent, when some weren't even concerned at all about this policy. I came to the table and participated because I live in the community. I live a block away from here. I wasn't watching from Trump Tower. I had shootings directly in front of my home. I had to come home to a community and talk to my kids about the shootings directly in front of my home. That's why I worked on gun policy. I didn't vote for the bill because it didn't have that ban, and you could look at the record. But I wasn't watching from Trump Tower because I live in the community. We know, Push, that we've had shootings up and down the Drexel corridor here. This is where my kids have to walk outside. Don't come to talk to me about assault weapons. It's been handguns that have been impacting our community. It's been the flow of these handguns. I know we've had this tragedy in Florida with the mass shooting, but we have shootings every day in the African American community, and it is not assault weapons. It is handguns that are taking our children. So I worked to make sure that these handguns were not getting in the hands of folks.
Nancy?
2013, when the concealed carry law was passed, there was a 10-day window for municipalities to pass these bans. As a mayor of a city that passed that ban and got sued by the NRA, we had the courage to stand up. We had the foresight to take action, and because we were sued and taken to the U.S. Supreme Court and won, it is constitutional in the state of Illinois to ban assault weapons and large capacity magazines. Now you may be asking, so why hasn't everybody done this? Because of that law, because it hasn't changed. And the day after that decision came down, I contacted members of the Illinois General Assembly and I said, amend your law, 9 words, take them out, let other people have that conversation. No action. A year later, no action. A year later, no action. I've written to them twice. I've asked them about bump stocks. I've asked them about licensing handgun dealers so we can shut down those bad apples and stop the straw purchases and stop the flood of guns into our streets and into our neighborhoods. No answer.
Scott?
So I want to talk about guns for a little bit. There's another issue I want to address. So in 2013, when that concealed carry bill did pass, and look, that bill allowed more people to carry handguns in the state of Illinois than ever before. And I fought against it. I voted against it. It was a horrible, horrible bill. In my community, and Nancy, Mayor Rodering is a mayor in my community, I called together all the mayors and all the police chiefs, and I said, hey, look, we have a 10-day window, and let's get this done. And so it was Highwood, a town of 5,000 people. 5,000 people took the lead in the state of Illinois, and they passed the assault weapons ban. And then Highland Park, and then North Chicago, and Deerfield passed assault weapons regulations. And yes, as soon as the Supreme Court said we're not going to take the case, there was legislation. I have that bill. I have a bill that says remove those words. It's not enough to write letters to legislators. We need people who are going to take action. The bump stocks, right after Las Vegas. I was the first legislator to introduce legislation to ban bump stocks. And as a Democratic state, do you know how many votes we got? How many we have 67 Democrats. How many Democrats actually voted to ban bump stocks, which are these things that turn semi-automatic weapons into machine guns? We got 37 Democrats to vote for that. 37 out of 67. That is pathetic in the state of Illinois, and it's a lack of leadership in our state. So just this last week, we heard that the Speaker of the House of Representatives of Illinois sat on an investigation of a young woman who was being sexually harassed by someone in his war organization. They knew about it for 1 year. For 1 year. He knew about it for at least 3 months while he was smiling, passing legislation saying, oh, look, mission accomplished, just like George W. Bush did. The mission wasn't accomplished. The mission wasn't accomplished. There was a young woman who felt helpless. And then we find out that there's more allegations going to his chief of staff. So that same day, you know what I did? I spoke on the House floor as a Democrat to the most powerful person in the state of Illinois. I said, Speaker Madigan, you need to step down. You need to stop being the Speaker of the Illinois House because you have lost the trust of the people of the state of Illinois, while everybody else in the General Assembly, everybody else in this race sat silent. They couldn't find their tongues because we don't live in a democracy. We don't live in a democracy. We have a leader of the Illinois House who is a tyrant. We have a leader who doesn't allow anyone to say anything he doesn't want to be said. And if we want to change that, we have to elect officials who have shown the backbone to stand up, not just talk and say, oh, if and when, but have done it. I have put myself out there. I've put myself out there for you. And if we want real change in the state of Illinois, then we have to vote for real change.
Let me say, Jesse, this is the last one because I saw that somebody must have pushed somebody's button up here. Trump Towers, what's all that? Kwame. Let's go for it.
Well, I agree. When I was at the State Board of Education as chairman, legislators would put member initiatives in there, pet projects that they try to bring back to their community. And one time there was a legislator who tried to put funding for a private religious school in there, which would be against the law. And I told him he couldn't do it. And he got so upset, he introduced a bill to abolish my state board of education in retaliation for me telling him, no, what you're trying to do is illegal. It actually passed the House of Representatives. Emil Jones stopped it in the Senate. CPS. Forrest Claypool comes in, wants to bring in a buddy as general counsel. I fought for diversity in the legal profession my entire career. I was proud that we had the first African-American male in James Bebley as general counsel, that I fought to make sure he was there. And he wanted to just get rid of him for no good reason. And so I fought against that general counsel hire. I voted against him. And shortly thereafter, I found myself being invited off the school board. But before I left, I reported that general counsel, who had told me in his interview, I'm still getting paid $1 million by my old law firm, and by the way, I plan on hiring them. He was open and honest about what he was going to do, which I knew was against the conflict of interest policy at CPS. And because of that, before I left and reporting that to the chief ethics officer, it led to the Inspector General investigation, and I was the very first person to call on Forrest Claypool to resign. He was a former colleague. But sometimes you got to stand up and speak out against colleagues and friends. If they're doing the wrong thing by people of the city of Chicago, state of Illinois, you speak out when it's against your own interest. And I knew I was going to get booted off the school board, and I love and passionate about advocating for public education. But my integrity in doing what's right was more important. And I'm frankly glad that now we have Dr. Janice Jackson as the CEO.
Big hand for all of them. A big hand for all of them. Ty Crater, come here right quick. I want to do two things. I want Ty to just briefly, he is a Cook County Democratic young leader, one of the young millennials into voter registration. And I want Eric to take us out on the song Stand, since his grandson has upped him today. I want his grandpa to take us out on Stand. Ty?
Thank you, Push, and thank you, Reverend. I'm just going to be very quick in remarks about voting. Voting is just the beginning. Griswold v. Connecticut was a landmark Supreme Court case which held that we have a right to privacy against our government being a know-it-all in our personal lives. Brown v. Board of Education found that separation is inherently unequal, essentially ending segregation on paper. These are cases that we know about as voters, but our votes, such as those for the next Attorney General, have great effect on the quality of our life. For example, in Illinois, Madigan versus Wildermouth was an Illinois Supreme Court case handed down last year. Do you remember back in 2010, 2011, we heard about a lot of those advertisements from companies that said that if you wanted to stay in your home or maintain your home, if you were facing foreclosure, they would be able to help you? Well, those ads were mostly targeted to Black and Latino communities. They preyed on people for trying to avoid foreclosure and living the American dream while they took thousands of dollars from people and doing nothing to avoid their foreclosures. So our current Attorney General sued them, said that that was illegal and people were owed money back. The court actually came through with dividing the question. And this is why your vote is so important. Not to oversimplify it, but if a person does something, if a person or a company uses discriminatory practices in getting you a bad mortgage or denying you a mortgage, that's against the law, and that makes sense. But what if the court said, well, the law in those commercials, what they really meant was if they wanted to help you maintain your home or stay in your home, that meant they wanted to help you repair it. You know, that the roof didn't leak or that the dishwasher wasn't working. That's not right. If there are votes, this is where your vote for Attorney General becomes your strength. We need to know who's going to take up the mantle for fighting for people who have been wronged, who's going to fight for justice, and who's going to offer more than just thoughts and prayers. If there is something that we need done, we need to know who's going to do it. This is where your votes and your strength for your state representative, your state senators, your governor, this is where it comes into play, because we need to ask who's going to rewrite those types of laws. Who's going to make sure that we go to their town halls, make sure that we go to their meetings, we call them, we email them, we text them, we send them messages on Facebook, we tell them what we want. We have to ask, what is it going to be, what are they going to do about restorative justice? As Illinois moves closer to creating recreational marijuana use, what do we do with people whose lives have been limited by felonies for doing the same thing that Illinois is now about to give someone a license to do legally? And as we stand in line, get our tickets, and we stood in line, and we go to Wakanda, and we see Black Panther, and we really get into what it is to be us in our community, we have to do the same thing on the ballot box. We have to do the same thing on Election Day and early voting. We have to get out there. And as long as I am chairman of the Cook County Young Democrats, we will continue to register young people who look like me, who look like you, to vote in this election and continue to educate them about their power in their vote. Thank you.
Put your hands together, put your hands together, put your hands together. I want Eric, my sister Dorothy Brown, please stand. You mean so much. A big hand for Dorothy Brown. You mean so much to us. Before we leave this, we're going to do a session like this with governors. All of those who are running for office should come before the people. We're going to have a session like this. You guys can be seated. He's going to sing one song, and y'all can leave some money and go. Eric? And by the way, Betty Magnus, you've done a good job. Give Betty a big hand. Give Betty. Have this up.
When you've done all you can, and it seems like it's never enough, tell me, what do you say when your friends turn away and you're all alone? Tell me, what do you give when you've given your all? Seems like you can't make it through. Well, you just stand when there's nothing left to do. You just stand and watch the Lord see you through. Yes, after you've done all you can, you just stand. Tell me, how do you handle the guilt of your past? Tell me, how do you deal with the shame? Tell me, how can you smile when your heart has been broken and filled with pain? Tell me, what do you give when you've given your all and it seems like you can't make it through? Well, you just stand, you stand, you stand. Don't you dare give up. You go through the storm and through the rain. You go through the heartache and through the pain. Hold on and be strong. Say you hold on. Don't you dare give up. Hey, 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 don't you bend and don't you bow. See, the Lord will make a way. Some way, somehow. You just stand. You stand. Say you stand. You just stand. Whoa, after you've done all you can. Hey, after prayed and cried, you cried and prayed. After you've done all you can, you just stand. Oh, you just stand. God bless you.
There's a very contentious governor's race between, well, there's 4 of them running. We're going to have a governor's seminar the same way. You who are here today who will support us, give Betty Magnus another bit. Betty, we thank you so much. They can go better. They can go better. Don't have no heart attack. You'll sacrifice Jesse, Mahon. You'll give at least $100. Please stand, whoever you are. We need your support. We need your support. You'll give at least $100 wherever you are. Please stand. Students say, what schools are you guys from? Anderson? That's my place. You'll give at least $100 wherever you are. Please stand and come forward. Thank you, sir. $50 as the case may be. But your daddy, your granddad said you could sing. He was serious about that. You'll give at least $50. You'd like to join Rainbow, you'd like to join, you're not a member, stand. You'd like to join Rainbow today, stand. You'd like to join us today, stand. Here's a swipe card. John? You'll give at least $50. Whoever you are, please stand. $25. You'll give something. Remember upstairs we have the T-shirts and the Rainbow Push paraphernalia. We need your support today. Don't take this work for granted. Chicago Urban Life, thank you so much. You've not yet given, you want to give, won't you? Daryl. Harold. Brother Johnson, thank you very much. Let us stand together. Sister, come up here, please, ma'am. Y'all see the shirt she's wearing today? We have our store upstairs, our Rainbow T-shirt store. T-shirts and sweaters and paraphernalia upstairs. If you're interested in the just upstairs, just up the stairs, you can get your Rainbow Push paraphernalia today. These shirts are going like hot potatoes. Look like Carolyn Kaepernick, but it's not Carolyn, that's me-neck. If you've not yet given, raise your hand. You've not yet given, raise your hand. You've not yet given, ushers need help. Ushers, hands, ushers, collect. Students from Anderson, want you guys to go and meet me in front of the King Silhouette, okay? When it's over, okay? Take them to the King Silhouette. Follow her. You made a way. I am somebody. Do that. I like that.
I am somebody. Take it from the verse. Some say my future not that bright.
Happy Mary.
Some say I'm useless, unholy, not living right. But at the beginning of the day, look in the mirror and say, I am somebody. Oh, I believe the future's in my hands.
Sing that thing. Sing it.
Tell every girl, boy, woman, or man, if I could think it, I can't believe it. Create it and achieve it. So I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. I may be down but not destroyed, empty but not void, 'cause I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. Oh, I am somebody. Oh, I may be down but I'm not destroyed, empty but not void, 'cause I am somebody.
Amen. Friends, thank you so much for coming. To remind you, this coming Monday is the last day of voter registration in the community. The 4th, you can register to vote between now and March the 4th. Elections March 20th. We're going to have a session just like this with the governors, those who run for governor. Hear them out and vote for whoever makes the most sense to you. Say amen, choir.
Amen. Oh, amen. Amen. Amen.
Everybody say, everybody say, everybody say, amen, amen, amen. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.